You won't believe the shocking texts that just came to light. Blake Lively's manipulation is clearer than ever, and Jenny Slate may have just stepped into a nightmare. The truth behind the Hollywood power dynamics, secret messages, and behind the scenes chaos is finally being exposed, and Taylor Swift backlash is about to explode. Stay with us because everything you thought you knew about this scandal is about to be turned upside down. Don't blink. You need to see this. The unfolding drama surrounding Blake Lively is becoming clearer and more intense as these unredacted texts surface, revealing manipulation, tension, and behind-the-scenes pressure that many on set were never meant to see. And the first person who seems caught in the middle is Jenny Slate, her co-star, someone who clearly wanted to just do her job, act professionally, and navigate a challenging production environment without stepping on anyone's toes. But as we dig through these texts, it becomes apparent that she's being pulled into a storm she never asked for. And as she tries to articulate her discomfort about various moments on set, moments that were professional yet unsettling, she's met with guidance, reassurance, and subtle leading from Blake, who consistently positions herself as the central authority figure, dictating not only what is appropriate but how others should interpret their feelings on set. And right from the start, Jenny's texts show a level of professionalism and care. She's reaching out to Blake to clarify that she hopes nothing she's shared has overstepped or complicated the production. She's expressing anxiety about certain behaviors she's observed, and at the same time, she's conscious of not wanting to disrupt the working relationship or make things awkward. And that careful balance between expressing concern and preserving harmony is something Blake clearly exploits by acknowledging Jenny's feelings while subtly reframing them to ensure that she remains the guiding force over the narrative, controlling what is deemed significant and what can be dismissed. And the text revealed Jenny's self-awareness. She recognizes that certain comments she made might be interpreted poorly, and she apologizes proactively. She apologizes for jokes about bedroom arrangements. She apologizes for referencing situations that could seem inappropriate in hindsight, all while navigating an environment where Blake's presence and influence is omnipresent, and constant guidance about interpersonal dynamics and the so-called safe spaces on set create an atmosphere where Jenny feels she cannot misstep without drawing scrutiny. And so Blake continues to lead the conversation, positioning herself as the arbitrator of comfort and safety, encouraging Jenny to speak up, but simultaneously shaping how those statements are perceived, ensuring that Jenny internalizes the idea that Blake's perspective is the standard, and subtly implying that any discomfort Jenny feels should be carefully calibrated to align with the larger narrative Blake is constructing. And as the texts unfold, we see Jenny's responses become more cautious, more apologetic, more deferential, a reflection of the imbalance of power on set and the weight of Blake's influence. Jenny is aware she is lower on the call sheet. She knows that Blake is number one. She knows Ryan Reynolds is involved and powerful, and that Taylor Swift is connected. And this ecosystem of celebrity influence creates a scenario where Jenny must navigate with extreme care. Every word, every clarification, every concern is filtered through the lens of how Blake might interpret it. And as Blake reinforces points about leadership, professionalism, and the importance of boundaries, she simultaneously frames certain behaviors as problematic while excusing others when they align with her own perspective, highlighting a disparity in expectations and leaving Jenny to reconcile the stress of production demands with the subtle social pressures imposed by her co-star. And it's in this interplay that we start to see a pattern of manipulation emerge. The texts themselves are meticulous in showing Blake's ability to guide emotions, frame reactions, and establish a hierarchy of importance, where she controls the flow of what matters and what does not. And as Jenny expresses apprehension about the WGA rules, improvisation, and the impact of a looming strike, Blake's responses consistently redirect attention toward professional composure, camaraderie, and not making the situation awkward while subtly downplaying the concerns Jenny raises about recording incidents and interactions with other team members. And this constant balancing act Jenny must perform is where the tension and drama of the situation come alive. It's not about overt misconduct, but about psychological navigation and social pressure, where power dynamics are leveraged through text messages to ensure alignment with Blake's intended narrative, while leaving Jenny feeling responsible for preserving harmony and not disrupting the environment in ways that could reflect poorly on her. And it's this subtle orchestration that becomes the backbone of the controversy, because as the texts continue, Blake references scenarios involving jokes, comments about attractiveness, and bedroom arrangements in ways that make Jenny feel she must apologize repeatedly and reiterate her awareness of appropriateness, while Blake frames her own reactions as the standard for sensitivity and safety. And the careful orchestration of these communications creates a sense that Jenny's emotional responses are guided rather than organic. and that she is being coached in real time on how to navigate interactions with both Blake and Justin in ways that amplify Blake's control over perception, narrative, and the interpretation of events, and this sets the stage for a conflict that feels exaggerated to an outside observer yet internally is entirely about control, hierarchy, and influence, where Blake remains the central figure whose validation and assessment dictate the boundaries and norms, and Jenny is left oscillating between expressing herself and adhering to the invisible rules Blake establishes. And the unredacted texts capture this tension in vivid detail, providing insight into a system of influence and psychological maneuvering that most audiences could never imagine. Behind the glamour and drama of a Hollywood set, and the stakes feel high, because every message carries the weight of reputation, hierarchy, and potential professional consequences for those lower in the power structure. As we move further into the messages, the manipulation becomes more apparent. Blake continuously frames conversations in ways that seem supportive yet strategically guide Jenny to a particular interpretation of events, creating an atmosphere of compliance and self-doubt, where Jenny is repeatedly validating Blake's perspective and internalizing the notion that her own observations and feelings must align with Blake's interpretation. And throughout the text, we see multiple examples of Blake using empathy and guidance as tools of influence. She acknowledges discomforts, but reframes them, subtly instructing Jenny on what is truly significant and what should be considered minor, allowing Blake to assert control over the narrative and shape how the production is perceived internally and externally. Jenny in turn apologizes repeatedly for missteps she perceives as inappropriate. She expresses concern about how her jokes about bedroom arrangements or commentary about improvisation could be interpreted, and Blake continuously reframes these interactions, positioning herself as the authority on acceptable behavior and emotional response. And this pattern repeats with interactions regarding other actors, including Justin Baldoni, where comments about attractiveness or improvisation are acknowledged by Blake yet contextualized in ways that minimize perceived offense while amplifying Blake's interpretive authority. And Jenny begins to adjust her communications accordingly, apologizing for remarks she may have originally considered harmless or humorous, and internalizing Blake's framing of what is and isn't problematic. And as we continue reading the texts, we observe Blake reminding Jenny to focus on the work, to not let minor interpersonal tensions overshadow the production, yet simultaneously referencing uncomfortable incidents, such as recording sessions and comments made by other cast members, in ways that subtly signal that these incidents are noteworthy and should be navigated with care. And this duality creates a persistent sense of responsibility on Jenny's part to both comply with Blake's directives and manage her own perception of appropriateness, resulting in an environment where communication is filtered through layers of influence, interpretation, and self-monitoring. And as the messages continue, Blake explicitly reminds Jenny that leadership, professionalism, and communication norms are essential, while also acknowledging the natural stress and discomfort of working with a new director or navigating WGA rules. Yet the underlying message is clear. Jenny's responses and perceptions should be aligned with Blake's framing. And when Jenny expresses relief that Blake is forgiving about previous comments, Blake emphasizes the differences in interpersonal dynamics between men and women, subtly asserting the notion that a woman's comfort and perception are paramount, and that Jenny's role includes ensuring that these dynamics remain intact. And under Blake's oversight, and as the texts delve into personal anecdotes about family arrangements, sleeping situations, and casual humor about sex and intimacy, Blake interprets these scenarios in ways that highlight her own interpretive authority, framing situations to ensure Jenny understands what is acceptable and what might be considered inappropriate from Blake's perspective. And even when incidents are relatively benign, such as jokes or comments about bedroom arrangements, Blake positions herself as the arbiter of comfort, providing guidance, reassurance, and subtle correction, while simultaneously reinforcing the idea that Jenny's professional conduct and perception of appropriateness must be aligned with Blake's framing. And as the texts progress, we see Jenny responding with repeated apologies, clarifications, and reassurances, acknowledging her own mistakes or perceived missteps and emphasizing her intent to maintain professionalism and avoid awkwardness, all of which reinforces the power imbalance and illustrates how social and professional influence can be exerted in subtle ways that guide behavior, perception, and interpretation. And this becomes especially significant in the context of Hollywood production, where hierarchy, reputation, and influence are central to both professional success and personal safety. And the texts offer a rare glimpse into how communication can be used as a tool of guidance, pressure, and control, where the ostensibly supportive tone masks an underlying orchestration of perception and alignment, ensuring that lower-ranked individuals internalize the priorities and perspectives of those at the top of the hierarchy, and Jenny's repeated apologies, acknowledgement of missteps, and expressed deference to Blake's perspective demonstrate the effectiveness of this subtle manipulation and reinforce the sense that these interactions are far more complex than they appear externally, as each message serves as both guidance and subtle reinforcement of hierarchical norms that dictate how behavior is interpreted and what is deemed acceptable, while maintaining a veneer of supportive mentorship and professional care. And the cumulative effect of these messages reveals how psychological influence, social hierarchy, and narrative control converge to create a high-stakes environment where every word, gesture, and comment is mediated by the influence of a central figure, whose authority shapes perception, expectation, and response. And yet the drama doesn't stop there, as Blake's framing continues to intersect with real-world production pressures. Jenny's concerns about improvisation and potential WGA violations are acknowledged by Blake, but reframed in a manner that prioritizes professional image cohesion and perception over procedural accuracy. Blake's communications direct Jenny to focus on maintaining camaraderie, harmony, and composure, even in the face of her own legitimate concerns about union rules, safety, and workflow. And this redirection demonstrates a skillful blending of guidance, reassurance, and subtle pressure, ensuring that Jenny internalizes the importance of alignment, while downplaying the structural concerns that might otherwise require external intervention. And through repeated exchanges, Blake reinforces her own authority by emphasizing leadership standards expected on set, behavior expectations for cast members, and the interpretation of professional interactions in ways that subtly guide Jenny's emotional responses, framing moments of discomfort or miscommunication as opportunities to internalize Blake's perspective and maintain the perceived equilibrium of the production, while simultaneously minimizing attention to the specific sources of concern, such as inappropriate recording or unwanted commentary from other cast members. And the repetition of apologies, acknowledgments, and clarifications from Jenny signals a growing awareness that her own observations and instincts must be filtered through the lens of Blake's expectations and interpretations, creating a dynamic where the lower-ranked cast member must navigate complex social and professional cues in ways that satisfy the expectations of a highly influential peer, while balancing personal values, professional standards, and production requirements. And as these exchanges progress, Blake continues to emphasize the importance of understanding interpersonal dynamics, focusing on the work at hand and maintaining the perception of professional decorum, while subtly reinforcing her role as the final arbiter of acceptable behavior and interpretation of events. And Jenny's repeated deferential responses demonstrate the degree to which influence, hierarchy, and social pressure shape interactions and decision-making in high-stakes professional environments. And the texts reveal how the blending of personal anecdote, reassurance, guidance, and subtle correction can serve as a potent tool for directing perception, behavior, and alignment without overt coercion or explicit instruction. And this interplay of power, influence, and guidance is particularly evident when Blake addresses sensitive topics such as sexualized comments, bedroom arrangements, and humor about intimacy, providing interpretive framing that guides Jenny's response while reinforcing Blake's authority and the expectation that Jenny will adjust behavior and interpretation accordingly. And the texts highlight the complex navigation required when operating in environments where hierarchy, reputation, and influence are central to success. And the subtle orchestration evident in these messages provides insight into how social and professional dynamics intersect in Hollywood production, with powerful actors directing not only workflow, but emotional response, perception, and alignment through nuanced communication, guidance, and repeated reinforcement. And while Blake's tone maintains the appearance of mentorship, support, and understanding, the cumulative effect on Jenny is a consistent internalization of hierarchical guidance, a heightened sense of responsibility for alignment, and a persistent need to navigate interactions with care, precision, and deference, all of which underscore the tension, drama, and high-stakes nature of these interactions captured in these unredacted communications. And the pattern emerges repeatedly as Blake addresses behavioral concerns, interpersonal missteps, and professional anxieties, guiding Jenny's responses and internalizing the framing that positions Blake as the central authority, whose interpretation determines the appropriateness, relevance, and significance of actions, events, and communications. And this orchestration ensures that every subsequent interaction adheres to the perceived expectations and narrative priorities established by Blake, further amplifying the complexity, stress, and psychological impact of these exchanges, while highlighting the subtle but profound influence that hierarchy and power can have on perception and behavior even in environments that appear collaborative, supportive, and professional on the surface. And as the texts continue to be analyzed, the depth of influence and manipulation becomes increasingly apparent, demonstrating how subtle guidance, empathy, and reassurance can be strategically employed to shape perception, narrative, and professional alignment without overt confrontation or explicit coercion, creating a scenario in which Jenny must continually adjust, calibrate, and align her own reactions, feelings, and responses with the priorities and interpretations dictated by Blake Lively, whose influence extends beyond professional direction to the orchestration of emotional response, perception, and narrative control in ways that shape the trajectory of professional interactions and production dynamics throughout the entirety of the filmmaking process. The culmination of these communications is a revealing window into the pressures cast members face when navigating high-profile productions with dominant personalities and extensive networks of influence. Blake Lively's communications with Jenny Slate exemplify the convergence of authority, persuasion, and social guidance in ways that subtly shape not only perception and behavior, but also emotional processing and internal narrative. As Jenny repeatedly acknowledges missteps, apologizes, and seeks reassurance, she is simultaneously absorbing the interpretive framework established by Blake, internalizing cues about what constitutes appropriate behavior, professional decorum, and emotional alignment. And while the exchanges maintain a veneer of mentorship and support, the underlying structure is one of influence, hierarchy, and narrative control, with Blake consistently guiding responses, framing discomforts, and emphasizing alignment with her own interpretation of events and incidents. And this ongoing orchestration is particularly evident in how discussions about WGA concerns, improvisation, recording incidents, and personal anecdotes are managed. Blake continuously redirects focus toward maintaining harmony, professionalism, and perception management, ensuring that Jenny's responses are consistent with the desired narrative, while minimizing attention to procedural or structural concerns that may complicate the overarching perception of the production. And in doing so, Blake demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of social influence, power dynamics, and professional hierarchy, leveraging empathy, reassurance, and interpretive guidance to maintain alignment, narrative control, and emotional modulation within her peer group. And the texts reveal a multi-layered approach to managing both professional outcomes and interpersonal dynamics, where guidance, reassurance, and subtle manipulation intersect to create a controlled environment in which lower-ranked cast members internalize expectations, align behavior, and interpret events according to the framework established by a central authority figure. And as Jenny navigates these messages, she balances professional responsibility, personal conscience, and the implicit pressures imposed by the hierarchical structure of the set, resulting in a dynamic where every communication and action is filtered through layers of influence, interpretation, and alignment with Blake's framing. And the cumulative effect is an environment of heightened sensitivity, deference, and internalized compliance, where the boundaries between professional guidance, mentorship, and subtle orchestration of perception are blurred. And the unredacted texts provide a rare glimpse into how these interactions manifest in real time, capturing the tension, influence, and psychological navigation required to maintain alignment in an environment dominated by high-profile actors, hierarchical authority, and complex interpersonal dynamics. And as viewers examine these communications, the depth of the strategy, subtle manipulation, and interpretive guidance becomes increasingly apparent, demonstrating how influence, hierarchy, and social navigation converge in Hollywood productions to shape both perception and behavior, creating a scenario where the lower-ranked participant must continuously adapt, calibrate, and respond to the expectations, cues, and interpretations of a central figure whose authority extends beyond professional oversight to encompass narrative control, emotional alignment, and interpretive framing, shaping the trajectory of the production and interpersonal dynamics throughout. And the analysis of these messages highlights not only the tension, drama, and complexity of the situation, but also the remarkable degree of subtle influence and orchestration present in high-stakes Hollywood environments, revealing the psychological navigation and strategic communication required to succeed or even survive in these intricate social and professional hierarchies. In reviewing these unredacted texts, it becomes clear that the tension, drama, and psychological navigation on set extend far beyond surface-level misunderstandings. The exchanges between Blake Lively and Jenny Slate illustrate a dynamic where power, hierarchy, and influence intersect to shape perception, behavior, and emotional response in ways that are subtle yet profound. Jenny Slate's repeated apologies, acknowledgments, and clarifications underscore the pressure of navigating a high-profile production with powerful peers where every comment, joke, or anecdote is filtered through the lens of interpretation established by Blake Lively, whose guidance, reassurance, and framing consistently direct responses, internalization, and alignment. And while the tone of these messages maintains a veneer of mentorship and support, the underlying structure demonstrates a deliberate orchestration of narrative influence, ensuring that the lower-ranked cast member aligns with the priorities, perspectives, and interpretations dictated by Blake Lively. And as viewers examine these texts, it becomes apparent that what may appear externally as minor social or professional interactions actually represents a complex interplay of influence, social hierarchy, and strategic communication, where emotional calibration, professional alignment, and narrative control converge to create a high-stakes environment. Every word exchange carries weight, every response is mediated, and every interaction is guided by subtle pressures that shape both perception and behavior. And the cumulative effect is a production environment in which lower-ranked participants must navigate a landscape defined by authority, hierarchy, and interpretive framing while balancing personal conscience, professional standards, and social expectations. And these texts provide a rare glimpse into the mechanisms of influence, persuasion, and control that operate behind the scenes in high-profile productions, revealing not only the drama and tension inherent in Hollywood filmmaking, but also the sophisticated ways in which social and professional dynamics are managed, orchestrated, and leveraged to shape outcomes, narratives, and behavior. And ultimately, these communications highlight the complex interplay between guidance, influence, and hierarchy, demonstrating how nuanced communication, reassurance, and subtle orchestration can profoundly impact perception, alignment, and professional navigation within high-pressure entertainment environments.